Vegas Rat Rods was a Discovery Channel reality television series featuring Steve Darnell and his crew from the Las Vegas-based custom auto shop WelderUp, as they created some of the baddest Mad Max-style works of art out of old, dilapidated automobiles. The show premiered on 17th April 2014, and its 5th season was said to be scheduled for airing in the summer of 2020, but it didn't push through. Many are still wondering what happened, why it was cancelled. Owner Steve Darnell hailed from Montana. At the age of 7, he learned to drive a stick shift on his uncle's ranch, as the workers would be at the back of the truck along with the hays to feed the cows. When he visited his grandfather in Utah, the old man would take Steve along with him and sit him on his lap, letting him drive the truck. His father was said to be an iron worker who established his own steel company called Economy Steel in Las Vegas, and every summer, Steve would be there, just like being in school, as he learned from his dad and developed many skills through the years, including operating a forklift and other equipment, as well as fixing anything that was broken. Steve's first car was a 1973 orange Datsun. He'd mowed lawns to save enough money to buy a redline bicycle for $80 that only had a frame and a rear wheel. After he restored and customized it, he sold it for $300 and used the money to purchase the Datsun from a guy's backyard. Of course, it had problems, so he went to a junkyard whose owner gave him the parts he needed, knowing he was broke. Once it was fixed, he said he drove it every single day during his freshman year in high school, even without a license, and no matter how difficult it was, such as no power steering. He said there was nothing quite like being young and independent, of having the freedom to buy his own vehicle with his hard-earned money. He made serious money out of fixing motorcycles and dirt bikes, as well as building and selling bicycles and go-karts. It was said that his first client was his wrestling coach in high school, who asked him to build a bike that he would give to his daughter at Christmas. Steve built one so well that it was said to have eventually been passed down to the daughter's own kids. Before he graduated from high school, he'd moved on to buying, fixing, and selling cars. He worked for his father until 2001 or 2002, when he was ready to start his own business, which he called WelderUp, offering services from welding farm equipment to manufacturing tractor parts. Before he knew it, he was also building rat rods at night, just for fun. So how did Vegas Rat Rods come to be? It was 6 years later when he converted a 1928 Dodge into what he called the D-Rod, a 6-cylinder twin-turbocharged diesel rod with over 700 horsepower. Steve described it as edgy and radical looking, so that when it came out in 2009, it grabbed people's attention. The church was having a car show in its parking lot and told him that he could do a burnout, which he did, captured on camera, and uploaded onto YouTube. It went viral, accumulated millions of views in no time, and was even featured in Hot Rod magazine. Steve and his team later gave the D-Rod a badass makeover, adding more torque and turbo, and then renamed it the Destroyer in honor of his late grandfather, a World War II veteran who served aboard a destroyer and engaged in 9 battles. Back then, not many people understood what Steve was doing, seeing him as a mad scientist who bastardized classic cars. Fortunately, there were those who appreciated not just hot rods, but also rat rods, as the latter might look worn down or rusty, and some downright weird, but depending on the creativity of the makers, could be solid. A Canadian production company called Proper Television produced the reality TV series Vegas Rat Rods, and it ran for 3 seasons on Discovery Channel, with the 4th season produced by Discovery Studios. Steve's vision and imagination went into the creation of one-of-a-kind rat rods with the help of his team, mechanic Merlin Johnson, welder fabricator Justin Creamer, artisan barber Dave, and welder fabricator artist Travis Dieter. Steve's sons, Chase and Cash, work with the crew as mechanics, welders, and fabricators, helping and at the same time mastering skills. According to Steve, what sets them apart from other reality shows about cars is that they don't do drama, don't do fake, and don't do shiny and pretty. The premise of the show was that they searched the Badlands for the old bones and ghosts from the past, and then breathed new life into them. Initially, it was only aired on Discovery Channel Canada, but later, when it became a hit, it was shown in the US. Steve was hoping that the show would inspire fathers and their kids to build their own rat rods and bond over them. A number of famous builds were shown in the series. Client Nick owned a Batmobile and wanted to commission Steve's team to build a Joker-mobile. It cost $75,000. Steve went in search of the perfect vehicle, and he found it somewhere in the desert, near what used to be an 1860 Pony Express outpost. The owner sold him a 1930-31 Ford Model A Coupe for a couple of $100 with the trunk lid for free. Although the floor had rotted out, it was still considered a good find, as both doors were still there and the sheet metal on the outside was in good shape. Steve wanted it to be a badass villain car, something that looked evil. They chopped 7 inches off of it, stretched the front axle to make it wider, and installed a big block Chevy engine. They also put in airbag suspension, a roll cage, 44-inch rear tires, and gauges from World War II aircraft. They then sprayed layers of teal green, pearl lime green, and candy emerald green to make it look nasty. His team finished it in 3 weeks, and of course, it looks spectacular. The American Patriot Fest is held annually to pay tribute to troops, both past and present, as well as to raise funds for military-related charities. One of the organizers came up to the WelderUp shop to ask Steve to build something that would represent the veterans, which they could raffle off to raise as much as $30,000. They didn't have a budget for it, so Steve said he would provide free labor and would then just ask around town for donations for the parts needed. Steve, along with his sons, went to Whiskey's auto distillery, as he and the owner had shared a shop for a couple of years, with Steve always building something junky and the other guy something shiny. Whiskey donated a 1943 Harley flathead motor. The next place he visited was the O-School Choppers, with his old buddy Adam donating the rest of the bike parts. Steve's team assembled it and had someone put laser engravings on parts, including names of vets on dog tags on the fork. He also asked Dave to put etchings on the frame and gas tank, making it look like a knife was used to carve into it. To give the bike more personality, Steve made notches on top of the cylinder heads to represent the number of days his grandfather served during the war. He described the bike as something that had a brutal war feel to it, making it seem like it had been through hell and back. After 2 weeks, it was revealed at Harley-Davidson in Henderson, Nevada, and they had a big run to generate interest. Dorinda, a friend of Steve since they were young, came to the shop as she wanted something really creepy for a rat rod. She was into classic cars, ghost towns, and the paranormal. They agreed on an $83,000 price tag, with the car done in 4 weeks. Steve, along with Merlin, went as far as Victorville, California to get one that was said to be haunted. According to the owner, named Joe, the 1955 Chevy came from the serial killer Charles Manson's ranch in Death Valley. Anything associated with Manson, such as a car that he might have driven, was certain to have some bad juju going on, according to Steve. It was bought for $5,500. The car door opened, then closed on its own as they were leaving the barn, and Steve had a thought that something might have jumped in, not to be left behind. He jokingly said that if it was a bad spirit, then he would make it his buddy. His team put in brand new chassis, airbag suspension, 2015 Cadillac CT-SV motor, and all modern upgrades such as air conditioning, power steering, and stereo. They painted it black, making it look like it was burnt, or that it came from hell. However, they encountered a lot of problems putting everything together, as it had computer issues as well. They were unable to finish it on time, but the client was satisfied with the result, and she called it the Haunted Rod. The general manager of the shop, named Joe, who was like a brother to Steve, has a 2-year-old son who was diagnosed with cancer. When the WelderUp team learned about it, they converted a 1930 Ford Model A sedan into a rod that looked like it had cancer at the front, and it spread until it reached the back, where the car appeared brand new. The metal roses incorporated on it that were black and seemed lifeless got redder and healthier too. He was hoping that nobody would be offended by the car that his team built. It was just their way of expressing how they felt about what the boy was going through as he battled the disease. They wanted a car that would give hope and inspiration to those in the same situation, and dubbed it the Rose Rod. The car was on display in the shop showroom, and people loved it, even throwing money into it, which Steve put to good use by setting up a college fund for Joe's son. A Batmobile was displayed at the WelderUp showroom. It was one of the 30 molds of the original model made by the famous Hollywood customizer George Harris, whom Steve considered as one of the forefathers of rat rods. The original Batmobile was a concept car, and only one was made. It was sold for $1 to George, who took it back to his shop and transformed the Ford Lincoln Futura into a Batmobile in 3 weeks, with the help of Bill Cushenberry for the 1966-68 live-action TV show. Those familiar with Adam West as Batman would recognize this car. Kelly Knievel, son of the American Daredevil stunt performer Evel Knievel, asked his friend Steve to restore his father's Formula One dragster built in 1975, the only one of its kind, for the museum. Evel was known for his successful ramp-to-ramp motorcycle jumps, such as over 19 cars, 125 feet, with his Harley-Davidson XR750 in 1971, but he also used a puppet wheelie with a dragster in shows. Steve said that Evil was his childhood hero for being the coolest guy out there. Kelly wanted to keep it as original as possible, so Steve and his team only fixed the engine, put in a new camshaft, parachutes, and mags, and then redid the seat. Steve drove it when it was finished, and the front end popped up just like it did back in the day. Steve produced the music video of the heavy metal band Five Finger Death Punch, a cover of the 1964 classic House of the Rising Sun by the Animals. It was set in a dystopian future, similar to the Mel Gibson movie Mad Max, and the WelderUp team provided the vehicles that were used. It was said that even the sets and the costume designs were created by the team. Steve had a cameo role as a gambler. The MV was released in 2014 and has amassed over 130 million views. It was said that Vegas Rat Rods had to have a Canadian as one of its cast members, as it was produced by a Canadian company. As such, Grant Schwartz, Twiggy Talent, and Cheyenne Ruther were included in the show at one time or another. So why was Vegas Rat Rods cancelled? The first time its closure was rumored was after Season 3, as there was a delay in the airing of Season 4. However, it happened due to a change in the production company handling the show. Discovery Studios produced Season 4, and Steve said that it was the best that they'd done, as they'd become a lot freer. The last show was aired in the latter part of 2018, and its loyal viewers wondered why it was cancelled. Having low ratings was the usual cause why TV shows weren't renewed, but if that was the case, many believed that Discovery wouldn't have been interested in producing its fourth season. However, there were those who countered that the network didn't foresee that not having one of the fan favorites, Cheyenne, in the show affected its ratings. Some thought production was only halted due to the restrictions brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, and that it would soon resume once everything was back to normal. Another theory that fans had was that Steve asked for a higher fee, or that he wanted to venture into other TV projects. With no official explanation, its fans continued to speculate. Meanwhile, fans who were missing the show would be happy to know that Steve was still creating rat rods in a new video series called WelderUp, Make It Run Again. He was joined by his mechanic Merlin as they scoured for old, decommissioned vehicles to bring them back to life. They repaired and modified the vehicles, and the process was broadcast live through the social media. They created an auction page too, for viewers to bid on. WelderUp also has its own YouTube channel with over 160,000 subscribers, and its videos have garnered over 14 million views. The WelderUp offered self-guided tours of the showroom, where some of his rat rods were on display. Steve was also known for giving private tours to groups of people, as he explained about the cars and answered the questions. He was grateful to those who watched the show, and was willing to set aside some time for those who really wanted to know about him and what went on in the shop. Those wanting to purchase their merchandise, such as sweatshirts, t-shirts, cups, and Welder 101 metal kits, could also visit their store. So it would appear that Vegas Rat Rods has indeed come to an end. Or has it end?
Thank you for spending some time with us. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpick these videos which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on all social medias or ask a question in the comments below. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.